The courtroom held its breath. You could hear the quiet shuffle of paper, the scratching of pens, and the groan of old wooden benches shifting under tense bodies. At the center of it all, seated in a chair too big for her small frame, was a girl no older than 8. Her shoes dangled just above the polished floor, scuffed and worn. In her lap, a faded plush elephant rested between her hands, its ears threadbare from too many nights clutched in sleep. Her name was Emmy. She wore a pale yellow dress that looked like it had been picked for a birthday party, not a custody hearing. Her dark hair was braided in 2 neat plaits down her back, and her wide eyes were locked not on the judge, not on the sea of adults, but on the aisle. There, beyond the courtroom barrier, sat a golden retriever in a red service vest, perfectly still, except for the slow, steady thump of his tail. His name was Copper. 2 years earlier, Emmy had stopped speaking. No one could say the exact moment it happened. Trauma doesn't punch clocks, but those closest to her knew. It was the night the screaming turned into shaking. The night her father's rage became more than noise. A night of shattered picture frames and bruises that bloomed across her tiny body like unwelcome flowers. The physical wounds healed. Her voice did not. Since then, no therapist, no counselor, no medication had brought it back. She had communicated only through looks, silence, and when she had the strength, brief gestures. But Copper was different. Copper had been trained for children just like her. Children for whom the world had stopped making sense. He was more than a service animal. He was her translator, her bridge, her memory keeper. Judge Ramona Keene was known for her strict adherence to protocol. 62 years old, with a face carved in lines of restraint and iron will, she'd heard more family court cases than anyone in the district. Her reputation was built on order. And yet, this day was different. Something about the stillness of the room, about the small girl with her wide, wounded eyes, made her adjust her glasses twice before speaking. "Emmeline," she said, voice softened but still firm, "I'm going to ask you a few questions. You don't have to answer with words if you're not ready. You can nod or shake your head. Whatever you feel is right." Emmy did not respond. She only shifted slightly, tightening her grip on the elephant. Then her eyes moved, just a flicker, to Copper. What happened next was so subtle. Most in the courtroom didn't even catch it. Emmy lifted her pinky and traced a tiny circle in the air. Copper stood immediately. He trotted toward the bench, ears alert, tail no longer wagging. The courtroom didn't know what to make of it. The bailiff moved as if to stop him, but Judge Keene raised her hand. "Let him through." Copper reached Emmy's side, sat, and faced forward. Emmy tapped her chest twice. Copper barked. Just once. The sound cut through the tension like a crack in ice. Then silence. Judge Keene turned her head slowly to the psychologist seated behind the witness box. Dr. Mira Caldwell, who had worked with Emmy for nearly a year, was already standing. That was the signal, she said, breathless. "That's the full sequence." The judge's brow furrowed. "Explain." Dr. Caldwell walked forward, heels clicking on tile. "We developed a communication system for Emmy. It's specific, practiced, and confirmed. When she draws a circle, it means she has something to say. When she taps her chest and Copper barks, it means she's ready to tell us in her way." Keene's gaze darkened, curious and cautious. "Then what does she want to say?" "She told me to give you this." "But only if Copper barked." Dr. Caldwell opened her satchel and pulled out a small envelope, the kind children used to hide secrets, edges worn soft. She handed it to the judge. Inside was a crayon drawing. On it, a small girl cowered in a corner, knees tucked in her chest, a storm of red and black scribbles towering above her. The figure of a man loomed, eyes drawn as angry slashes, fists raised. Off to the side, a golden retriever stood barking. The judge flipped the paper over. Written in block letters, uneven but clear, were the words. "He says he loves me, but I'm only safe when he's not there." A sharp intake of breath swept through the room like a gust of wind. Emmy's father lurched from his chair. "This is absurd," he barked. "That dog is trained. She could have made this up." "Sit down." Judge Keen's voice cracked through the chamber. Now, or I will have you removed from his courtroom. He sat, trembling, rage written all over his clenched jaw. Copper didn't move. His focus remained on Emmy, eyes soft but unwavering. Then, for the first time in over 700 days, Emmy spoke. Copper remembers, she whispered. Her voice, gravelly from disuse, was barely above a breath. But it echoed like a bell through the stunned room. He knows who hurt me, even when I forgot. The court reporter's hands paused midair. Attorneys stared, mouths slightly ajar. Judge Keen blinked rapidly. Emmy turned her head slightly, this time to look at her mother sitting frozen with a tissue in one hand, the other clenched so tightly it had turned white. Then Emmy said, a little louder this time, I want to go home. With Mom. The judge sat motionless for a long moment. Then she cleared her throat, straightened the papers before her, and spoke with a quiet authority. Effective immediately, I am granting full custody to MS. Monroe. Her gavel hovered, then lowered. This hearing is concluded. But the courtroom didn't stir. They were still fixed on the girl and her dog. As the bailiff approached Emmy's father, now flushed and furious, the man sputtered, You can this, I sent, she's just a kid. Judge Keen gave him a look that could level mountains. And yet, she just told the truth more powerfully than any adult in this room has managed in years. She turned back to Emmy, eyes softening. You said more in one signal than most do in 1,000 words. 6 months later, the seasons had softened, and summer laid its warm hand over the city. Emmy sat on a wooden bench under a blooming tree, a drawing pad in her lap. Her braids were shorter now. Her yellow dress had been replaced with jeans and a bright green shirt that read, I speak. In my way. Copper lay curled at her feet, his tail flicking lightly at the breeze. A boy wandered over from the playground nearby. Can I pet your dog? He asked. Emmy looked up. She smiled. Only if you ask him first. He blinked. Ow! Emmy tapped her chest twice. Copper barked happily. The boy giggled and knelt down to rub his ears. Emmy laughed. A real laugh. The kind that starts in your belly and bursts out of you like sunlight through storm clouds. The kind of laugh that says the healing has begun, that the bridge is working. And somewhere, deep in the memory of every scar and shadow, something quiet and powerful stirred proof that sometimes the smallest voices carry the loudest truths. That sometimes the bravest heroes don't wear capes or carry badges. They walk on 4 legs, listen with their whole hearts, and wait for the signal that says, It's time to believe me now.